Hello, my friends. Today we are going to explore ancient Wakanda as it appears in the comic Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet. Before we begin, let me just clarify that we are basing today's fan theory on this comic, not any other Black Panther comic, and not on the movie of Black Panther. Just this comic alone. Okay? Today's video is meant as a way of exploring and enjoying history and culture. So please don't take things too seriously today, because I'm sure there's some other things in Black Panther's canon that will disprove what I say today. But that's not the point. The point is to have some fun. And if it makes you feel better, you can call this a fan fiction instead of a fan theory. Doesn't really matter to me. I just want to have some fun. Alrighty, so in this comic book we find Shuri in the plane of Wakandan Memory, known as the Djalia. Alright, and on the Djalia she meets this griot. What is a griot, you might wonder? Well, a griot is a traditional African storyteller, musician, and historian. And here is an image of one such griot. He's playing an instrument known as a kora. So, the griot and Shuri discuss 4 historical stories of Wakanda. Alright? 2 of which I believe I can date, and 2 other ones I'm not so sure I can. But we will cover the ones that I can date. Among 2 videos. This one right here is very easily dateable because they practically give us the date. And that's going to be a second video later on. Today's video, we are discussing this story, which, even though we aren't really given a date like the last one, I believe I can date this one. Okay? And it seems to be the very oldest story discussed in this comic. Okay? And because it takes place so long ago, that actually gives me some idea of where to place it. Anyway, before I get ahead of myself, what's happening? So, they're talking about the Adowa, which are a people of Wakanda, a very ancient people of Wakanda, and they show them farming here, making pottery, and then all of a sudden, who are these folks? Well, these folks are some invaders from a far-off land, and luckily for the Wakandans, they are able to fend them off. And before I forget to mention, I feel like this very early invasion in their history probably led them to their sort of isolationist mentality. But anyway, so how can we date this little story here? Well, as many of you may know, Wakanda is sort of a hodgepodge of different African arts and cultures from across time and space, right? So, and if you don't know that, in this comic book, unlike in the movie where I believe Wakanda is set in southern Ethiopia, if I remember correctly, in this comic, it's set in parts of Uganda and Rwanda. And I can tell that because there's Lake Victoria right there. They point that out to us. And if we look over here, if I can get to the dang page, come on, work with me. Alright, so right here, they show some South African Zulu shields. That doesn't make any sense. But like I said, in terms of location, that doesn't make any sense. Just gotta interrupt myself for a second. Now, I said these were Zulu shields, and some of you are probably thinking to yourselves, Justin, those don't look exactly like Zulu shields, and you are correct. They don't look exactly like Zulu shields, because the artist was using his creative freedom to change them around a bit. But we can tell that it's based on Zulu shields because of this distinctive line pattern that is decorating them. Anyway, just felt like clarifying it. Back to what I was saying. But as I said, Wakanda, as we all know, and there's some kente cloth. Wakanda, which is from Ghana. Wakanda, as we know, is this hodgepodge of African cultures. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I enjoy mixing and matching African cultures. It's a fun thing to do, and I have absolutely no problem with Black Panther doing that. But I'm just saying, in terms of us trying to figure out a date, looking at the African art is not going to help us. But what is that one thing, or at least one of the very few things that is consistent in Black Panther's lore? Is that they worship Bast, right? So, let's look at Egyptian history then. Alright. So, in the third intermediate period, when Egypt was conquered by Libyans, they set up their capital at Bubastis. So, let's read this little quote here. The popularity of the cat goddess Bastet, which is Bast, same goddess, surges when her cult center, Bubastis, becomes a seat of political power during the third intermediate period. Mummified cats brought in her honor by visiting pilgrims are buried in their special cemeteries. So, in this time frame, from 1070 to 767 BC, is likely the time period in which Wakandans learned of Bast. But is that where this takes place? Not quite. I think it takes place a little bit after that. Let's go a little further into Egyptian history and to the late period where the Nubians then go into Kemet, also known as Egypt. So that would be the time where we see, for example, Taharqa over here. Now, obviously, these are not Nubians. Clearly, they're not Nubians. So who the hell are they? Now, well, before I answer that, I have a feeling that some people, just for reference sake, might want to know, if you're wondering, that don't worry about this part. That's Alexander the Great. He comes later. But for reference sake, for time reference, if you're just curious, you don't feel like looking it up. If you're wondering, the Great Pyramids is around 2500 BC. Okay? Egypt's history is long as shit. Alright, so, but yeah. So who the hell are those people? Alright. Well, to answer that, let's look at this map. Let's look at this book of maps. About 660 BC. So Nubia is fighting for Egypt with, who's this? The Assyrian Empire. I think we found our guy. Alright? I think that is who we are looking at here, the Assyrians. So, now that we have some sort of conclusion and yes, I know, you can probably poke holes into this theory, but we're just having fun here talking about history, folks, so I don't have to go too crazy. But the cultures that would be contemporary with the cultures we are discussing, let's see. So roughly there was some dated painting spalls in southern Africa at this time, though that's not super important to mention because those San paintings date back way, way older than that. but since it's mentioned in this book, I might as well mention that. What else do we have? Kushite 25th dynasty rules Egypt, as we discussed. Let's see. A little later, the Temple of Yeha is made in Ethiopia, 500-300 BCE, and the Nox settlements. Now, this says 400-200 BCE, but I have another book that says it goes back even further to 800 BCE. Now, you may be wondering, why is there a discrepancy? Because some scholars not all scholars agree on dates. Okay, that's just how it is. Not all scholars agree on dates. Anyway, so here we have a worldview. Classical Greece would be 500-350 BCE. So ancient Greeks would be contemporary with the events in this book. And of course the Assyrians, which we just discussed. So I said that there was a number of cultures I believe would have been contemporary with this ancient Wakandan society. This, for example, is a Nox sculpture from ancient Nigeria. Surprisingly, we have not featured this on any of our videos yet, but I'm sure one day we will have a whole video dedicated just to the Nox, more than likely anyway. And of course there's plenty of other African cultures I have yet to share with you all. We will get to them in due time. Here is the Temple of Yeha that I mentioned, and that is in Ethiopia. And next to that, that is an obelisk from Ethiopia, but that's from later. We're mostly focusing on this temple here, Temple of Yeha. I also mentioned the sand paintings. So here's some sand paintings. Oh, this cute zebra. Oh, so cute, so chubby. Anyway, yeah, the sand paintings, there was some that dated from this time, but they go back way, way further in time than this. Some of them, many of them, older than Egypt. Alright. And right here, we have the Sphinx of Taharqa, which is dated 690 to 664 BC, obviously in the time period that we are talking about. And here's some Assyrians. This is, of course, the ancient ways that they depicted the Assyrians. And here's a more modern depiction right here that you can see. And yeah, their armor is pretty close to what was being worn by the characters in Black Panther. Also, I believe I mentioned the Greek culture being contemporary with these ancient Wakandans. So here's an example of Greek culture. It's Hercules, played by Kevin Sorbo. He's a manly man on VHS. Y'all don't even remember what that is. My dad used to watch that all the time. My daddy used to watch that. But, not really me. I wasn't all that into that when I was a kid. My version of Hercules was called Goku, and he shot Kamehameha blasts. Anyway. But here's some real Greek culture. Alright? Yeah, that way you can't say I didn't show you some actual Greek stuff. One more thing. I mentioned that when Libyans were controlling Egypt, that many pilgrims were bringing cat mummies to Bubastis. Well, here's a cat mummy, and here's a cat mummy. But what's this?
What's this? This ain't no cat. This is a mummy dog. Oh, here's your good woof. There's your good mummy doggy. There's your good woof'em. There's your good rug'em, sug'em, dug'em. There's your good duggly doo.
What? I like dogs. Finally, let's do a theory roundup. In Kemet's third intermediate period, a group of well-to-do and important Wakandan pilgrims visit Bubastis. There they learn of Bast, who they conflate with their own indigenous and ancient panther goddess. Years later, during the late period of Egypt, we see that the Assyrians and Nubians are fighting over Egypt, but the Assyrians win out in the end, and they capture some of the Nubians, one of whom tells them of a rumor of a mysterious and bountiful land known as Wakanda, which resides in the area of the real world Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. So, the Assyrians send a battalion further south to investigate. There they see the Wakandans and assume that they will have an easy victory. But that is not the case. The Wakandans fight back. They kill all of the invaders, except perhaps one who they have serve as a messenger to tell the Assyrians and the world that Wakandans are mighty and are a force to be reckoned with. Hope everyone enjoyed today's fan theory / fan fiction, and if you have your own thoughts about this graphic novel or Wakanda in general, please leave those in the comments below. Just keep in mind that it may be a while before I reply back, because I am currently still recovering from an injury, and I don't want to worry you guys too much about that, but yes, I am still recovering. Anyway, please like, comment, and subscribbly doots for more.